to deliver a welcome to country.
Thank you. Good morning. I am a Darramalata, custodian and native title of the Darrabal people. On behalf of the Darrabal People Enterprises and the Darrabal People's Aboriginal Corporation, we welcome this honourable investor ceremony on our country today. It is an honour for me to stand here and to thank the Defence Department for all that they do for Darrabal. Since the 1969s, when exercise Barrawinga was held here at Shoalwater Bay, for the Vietnam War, and for every year that exercises are held on our country at Shoalwater Bay, and even being held this very moment, exercise Talman Sabre. Shoalwater Bay is the homeland of my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my mother. So it really touches my heart to see that when the Defence Department leaves that country, they leave it nice and clean. You would never know that they had even been there. So I thank you for that. The Defence Department also supports every Darrabal child from preschool to university, and will do so for the next 100 years. So we are honoured and very privileged to welcome this ceremony today to honour this investor and this man who fought for this country. So we say today, all of us Darrabal, welcome to Darrabal land and the sea country that we call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Sally. I'd now like to invite the march in of the Kings and Regimental Colours of the 1st Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. I'd now like to acknowledge and welcome our official guests this morning, the Honourable Richard Marles, Acting Prime Minister and Minister for Defence, the Honourable Michael McCormack, representing the Leader of the Opposition, Mrs Donna Kirkland, Member for Rockhampton, representing the Premier of Queensland, Admiral David Johnston, Chief of the Defence Force, Lieutenant General Simon Stewart, Chief of the Army, Deputy Commissioner Scott Lee, Chief Police Officer for the ACT, Senator Matthew Canavan, Senator for Queensland, the Honourable Michelle Landry, Member for Capricornia, Mrs Robin Freeman, and all members of the Norden Freeman family, representatives from state and local government, and distinguished guests all. The Victoria Cross for Australia is the pre-eminent award for acts of bravery in wartime and is Australia's highest military honour. It is awarded for the most conspicuous gallantry or daring or pre-eminent acts of valour or self-sacrifice or extreme devotion to duty in the presence of the enemy. Today is an important day as we recognise only the 6th recipient of the Victoria Cross for Australia since it was introduced in 1991. There is now a total of 102 Australian Victoria Cross recipients since it was first introduced by Queen Victoria in 1856. Private Norden is only the 5th VC recipient recognised for his efforts in the Vietnam War, and another recipient, Mr Keith Payne VC, is here with us today, and I acknowledge his service. Welcome, Mr Payne. Shortly, I'll invite you all to stand, if you're able, for the Australian National Anthem. I'll then deliver the citation for the late Private Richard Norden VC, and the Governor-General will present the Victoria Cross for Australia to Mrs Freeman on behalf of the Norden family. Following the presentation, the Governor-General will make an address, followed by speeches from Mr Marles, Mr McCormack, Admiral Johnson, Mr Brian Tate, and Mr Scott Richard Norden Freeman. At the conclusion of these speeches, the last post will be played, followed by a minute of silence. The ceremony will then conclude at the march out of the Kings and Regimental Colours of the 1st Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment. Ladies and gentlemen, please now stand for the singing of the Australian National Anthem. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Can I now invite the Governor-General, Mrs Robin Freeman, accompanied by Shane and Scott, to come to the stage while I read the citation. be awarded the Victoria Cross for Australia, the late Private Richard Leslie Norden, to be accepted on behalf by his widow, Mrs. Robin Freeman. For most conspicuous acts of gallantry in action in the presence of the enemy in the AO surface area of operations in the Bien Hoa province, Vietnam, on 14 May 1968, during the Battle of Fire Support Base Coral. Private Richard Norden showed the finest examples of leadership, bravery, selflessness, mental and physical endurance and valour during the Battle of Fire Support Base Coral. During Operation Tuan Tang, 5th Platoon B Company were ambushed and came under heavy fire from an estimated squad of 7 to 10 North Vietnamese Army soldiers. Private Norden, who was a member of the leading section, ran towards the enemy to the section commander and a forward scout, who were both badly wounded during initial enemy contact. Private Norden engaged with the enemy both with his own weapon and once that was exhausted with an enemy weapon that he had secured. After further engaging with enemy soldiers, he somehow managed to return the severely wounded section commander back to the section. Then, despite his own injuries, Private Norden pressed forward under continued enemy fire, further engaging with the North Vietnamese Army soldiers who had been holding his colleague, the scout. While he was unable to secure the release of the scout, he returned to the section to collect grenades and moved forward for a third time. Clearing the area, Private Norden enabled the scout's body to be recovered. Disregarding his own safety for the benefit of others, Private Norden's courage meant the enemy position could be secured, and he likely saved the lives of other members of the platoon. His gallantry makes him most deserving of Australia's highest military decoration. The late Private Richard Leslie Norden, awarded the Victoria Cross for Australia and accepted by Mrs. Robin Freeman. Thank you, Mrs. Freeman. You might wish to return to your seats now for a moment. And I now invite Her Excellency Ms. Sam Austin, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, to address us.
Thank you, Jared, and good morning, everybody. Thank you, Auntie Shelley, for your wonderful and generous welcome to your country. I was pleased to hear that you said Defence treats your land with great respect. I was on your land at Shoalwater Bay yesterday to see some of the exercise of Talisman Sabre, and I think given the extraordinary amount of work that goes on in inviting 18 other nations to join in that exercise, to be on your country, to know that that is treated with respect at the conclusion was wonderful to hear. So thank you for welcoming us to your country. I acknowledge the Darringal people as the traditional custodians of the land that we are meeting on, and I acknowledge their elders, past, and present. I'd also like to acknowledge any other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who join us for this service today. The Honourable Richard Marles, Acting Prime Minister of Australia and Minister for Defence. Mr Michael McCormack, Member for Riverina, representing the Leader of the Opposition. Michael, you have so proudly celebrated the award of this Victoria Cross for Australia to Private Richard Norden, VC, who was born in Gundagai, in your electorate of Riverina, and you were present with me at the announcement of the award on the 11th of November last year, on Remembrance Day. It's wonderful that you were able to be here today as we close the circle with this ceremony. I know it was very important to you at the time that we did this very well and in accordance with the wishes of the family. The Honourable Matt Canavan, Senator for Queensland, and Michelle Landry, the Member for Capricornia. Admiral David Johnson, RAN, Chief of Defence Force, senior leaders and members of the Australian Defence Force who are here in very large numbers. Mayor Tony Williams and councillors. And I come to the most important guests. Mrs Robin Freeman, Mr Lance Freeman, together with Shane and Scott Norden Freeman and Ben Freeman. It is extraordinary to have you here. It's a very solemn but beautiful occasion that we just passed very quickly, actually, the handing of the Victoria Cross for Australia. That moment was quite short, but it has been a long time to get to this point. Your presence represents the importance of this to Australia, and as we've discussed in the months leading up to this, it's so important that we're doing this here, where you live, where your community is now. And I'm so pleased that last night we were able to celebrate the awards of the National Medal and the Police Service Medal in the home of your son, who welcomed us into this wonderful city on a beautiful sunset ceremony, which I think set the stage for today's very, very important ceremony. I'd like to also acknowledge, he has been acknowledged, but Mr Keith Payne, VC, the only living Victoria Cross for Australia recipient from Vietnam. We had a lovely catch-up last night, Keith. We were able to have a bit of a chat just in this building downstairs, and I was so pleased to find a connection with my father, who also served in Vietnam in different roles. He's about your age too, and I'm happy to say he's still alive. And I commented to him last night that it was wonderful to see you looking so well at 91, I understand. So it's wonderful to have you here. I also want to acknowledge the very dear family and friends of Private Richard Norden. You've come from many parts of not just the country, but across the world for yesterday's ceremony that related to the police service, but today for this historic occasion. I know what that means to the family, for those of you who've come from very far distances to be here at this very special investiture. And distinguished guests, or everyone here is a distinguished guest. As a proud Australian, the daughter of a Vietnam veteran and your Commander-in-Chief and Governor-General, it's been an honour for me to have the opportunity to preside over this ceremony to invest the late Private Richard Norden with the Victoria Cross for Australia. Here with all of you, even so distant in time and place from the actions of which Private Norden VC is now remembered, I recognise, as I'm sure you all do, the strength of our enduring connection to a man who, with his remarkable courage, continues to inspire us and deserves our deep honour and respect. Now, I announced this rare award, as I've said, on the 11th of November 2024 at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra, just moments after the conclusion of our National Remembrance Day ceremony. During that solemn service, it was important to reflect on commemoration as a ritual of remembrance that has seen generations of Australians give thanks for the service and sacrifice of servicemen and women who have suffered or died for Australia in conflicts far from home. I felt that again at dawn, just this year in April on Anzac Day at Gallipoli, and in the moment of reflection while reading the headstones of the very young men buried there for more than a century, but who also are all forever cherished here at home. In the history of the Victoria Cross for Australia and the reverence with which it is given and received, we find the same opportunity for commemoration and gratitude. The 24 short years of Richard Norden VC's life were largely spent in a corner of New South Wales, bounded by the Snowy Mountains to the south and the Murrumbidgee River to the north. From his birth in Gundagai in 1948 to his untimely and terribly tragic death, so young, just far too soon, in service of the ACT Police at that time, in Canberra in 1972, the ties of friendship and family anchored him to that small part of the world, far from here actually, but especially to his parents Walter and Rita, his brothers Roger and Robert and sister Robin, his wife Robin, and sons Shane and Scott, and now the broader family. Shane and Scott, I think it's so important that you are both here today with your families to celebrate your father. I hope that today's events and the many stories that you will hear and the respect you will feel will give you a sense of your father and renew the strength of your own connection to him and his history, which you carry as his sons. I know how important that is to both of you and how emotionally driven that is. Also want to acknowledge Lance. Last night, one of Richard's former, or Dick's former colleagues presented you with the, I think we called it the Unsung Hero Award, which is terribly important to remember that you're a part of this family, and Ben also, that this is about the entire family, that now we commemorate Richard Norden VC. Now, beyond his training at Kapuka and Ingleburn, the months that Private Norden VC spent in Vietnam took him beyond all he had ever known. Like so many of the young men who travelled from their own corners of our vast country to serve in that bitter conflict in a far-off part of the world, he made a soldier's simple promise to defend what he knew and loved, his family, his mates, his home, and his country. And as we've heard from the citation, on the 14th of May 1968, in a moment of fire and fury, danger and confusion, Private Norden answered that call with a strength, determination, selflessness and valour that we in this place of peace find simply impossible to comprehend, and which we are compelled, we must remember and commemorate. His heroic actions are central to this award, our nation's highest for gallantry. The investing of this VC will always be remembered not just by those of us that are privileged to be here, Richard's loved ones and mates, but by generations to come. Many of you here today, family and old mates, you give us also the reason to pay tribute and remember today. As Lance and Robin said to me just over the weekend, we need our heroes. We need our heroes right now, I think you said, Lance. And the resolve of so many of you to honour the memory of Private Norden VC has given new generations of Australians the chance to know and understand the gallantry, the unflinching courage and devotion to duty that has etched his name permanently in our nation's story. As Gerard has mentioned, in the Hall of Valour of the Australian War Memorial sits the names of the 102 Australians who have received the Victoria Cross, including only five from the Vietnam War, our highest award for the acts of bravery in wartime. Some have sent messages of remembrance for today's ceremony, and Corporal Mark Donaldson, VC, expressing the pride of all living VCs, has written this. Private Norden's dedication to his mates and mission shone above all else. To have courage is one thing. To have it in the face of such overwhelming odds and enemy shows just how much he had. We know in the path that Private Norden VC chose following his discharge from the Australian Army when he joined the Australian Capital Territories Police Force in February 1970, that a life of service was intrinsic to Richard Norden's character. In the few years that remained for him, he acted out the values of courage, compassion, kindness, respect and care that drove him in battle in Vietnam and for which we honour him today. And yesterday's very moving presentation of the National Medal and the AFP Service Medal in your home showed that his service post-Vietnam has also now been officially recognised. Now, the music of One RAR and the presence of the regiment's colour party are so very welcome this morning. They are a reminder to us of the Australian Defence Force's ceremonial traditions and the standards of service that have endured through so many decades. It's these same traditions and standards that shaped the service of Private Richard Norden VC and continue to inspire the work of service and sacrifice that is at the heart of our modern Australian Defence Force and the women and men who serve today. In paying tribute to Private Norden VC today, we also pay tribute to Australia's current servicemen and women, veterans and those who've served across the generations, and their families who travelled the path of service alongside them. For today, in presenting this remarkable and rare insignia to Robin and the family, and inscribing Private Richard Norden's VC's name on the list of all who have earned the Victoria Cross for Australia, we commit ourselves again to strive to uphold the freedoms for which he fought. We will not forget, we will remember.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'd now like to invite the Acting Prime Minister, the Honourable Richard Marles, to speak to us.
Can I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present. To the Governor-General, Her Excellency Sam Mostyn. To my good friend and colleague, Michael McCormack, representing the Leader of the Opposition, and through Michael, all my parliamentary colleagues, state and federal. To Admiral David Johnson, the Chief of the Defence Force, and through him, everyone who is here today wearing our nation's uniform in the service of Australia, and also to all the members of the various police forces who are represented here today as well. To Keith Payne VC, you honour us by your presence here today. Thank you. And of course, most significantly, to Robin Freeman, to Shane, to Scott, and to all the members of the Norden Freeman family. Today, of course, is an enormously significant day for Robin and her family. But today, we are seeing the awarding of just the 102nd Victoria Cross in our nation's history. And so as a result, today is an enormously significant day for the nation as we acknowledge Private Richard Norden and all that he did, as we acknowledge his extraordinary story. We take a moment to be inspired by the most worthy values in the service of our country. The actual Victoria Cross, the medal, is fashioned out of metal that is taken from 3 cannons that were captured by the United Kingdom in the Battle of Crimea. As a result, every Victoria Cross is made in England. And last December, I was given the extraordinary privilege of bringing Richard Norden's Victoria Cross back to Australia, having been presented it by the Secretary for Defence of the United Kingdom, John Healey, and the Office of the Duke of Wellington. To actually hold the Victoria Cross takes your breath away. It is in a moment to understand that you have in your possession an item which is rare, an item which feels deeply sacred. But as significant as the medal is, it is of course a symbol, a token of something far more important. It speaks to an extraordinary act, an act of selflessness, an act of humility, an act of the most extraordinary bravery, an act of greatness. in May of 1968 when Private Richard Norden came out in the face of the most extreme fire to rescue a colleague, and then repeatedly a second and a third time, in order to secure an enemy position which saved the lives of those around him. He engaged in what is at the heart of the awarding of the Victoria Cross. It is a decision in a moment to show disregard for one's own life in order to save the life of another. It is to give literal expression to the words, "Greater love have no man than this, that he laid down his life for that of his friend." To hold the Victoria Cross is to ask a question about where that greatness comes from. Where and how does it happen? Is it a greatness that resides in many of us? What would any of us do in this moment? Is it a greatness that lies in us? It is a question, of course, that we don't know the answer to. And yet, in the case of Richard Norden, on that day, in May of 1968, it was a question which was indefatigably answered in respect of him. And by displaying that greatness on that day, he gave inspiration to everyone who wears our nation's uniform and gave an expression to what it is to see the sacrifice of the 103,000 Australians who have lost their life in our nation's service. And the medal itself bears testament to that greatness. And as a result of today's investiture, Private Richard Norden VC and his story now belongs to the ages. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Can I now invite the Honourable Michael McCormack, representing the Leader of the Opposition, to the stage.
Her Excellency, the Governor-General Sam Mostyn AC, and her husband, Cindy Beckett, Mrs. Robin Freeman, Scott and Shane Norden, serving members of the Australian Defence Force, Chief of Defence Admiral David Johnson AC, RAN, Chief of Army Lieutenant General Simon Stewart AO DSC, Deputy Commissioner Scott Lee, Chief of Police Officer of the Australian Capital Territory. Veterans, Keith Payne, BCAM, Acting Prime Minister and Minister for Defence, the Honourable Richard Miles MP, Member for Capricornia, the Honourable Michelle Landry MP, Senator for Queensland, the Honourable Matthew Canavan. Rockhampton Regional Councillors, the State Member, Australian War Memorial Director, my good friend, Matt Anderson. Other family members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. A little more than 1,500 kilometres south of here, there stands a red and grey granite and concrete obelisk with names engraved in gold. This grand monument has proudly stood at the top of Gundagai's Main Street, Sheridan Street, for 97 years, a silent, solemn and solid reminder of service and sacrifice. It contains the names of 1,133 of this nation's best, Australia's finest. Erected to the glory of God and the honour of brave men by a grateful people, reads the memorial's inscription. Amongst all those his heroic local names is one R.L. Norden, DCM. Coincidentally, at the very top of those on the side of the shrine facing east. The initials, DCM, Distinguished Conduct Medal, today, rightly, finally, can be upgraded to VC, Victoria Cross for Australia. Richard Leslie Norden deserves this recognition. We all know this. It took 56 years for this honour, the highest in our military, to be announced on Remembrance Day last year at the Australian War Memorial. Let us not, however, dwell on the length of time it has taken, but rather let us celebrate and commemorate a magnificent Australian from a remarkable family and a wonderful and patriotic community. Richard Norden's grandfather, Frederick Carl Norden, was an Anzac in every sense of the term. He landed on Gallipoli on 15 May 1915 and served on the ill-fated peninsula until being wounded in the right shoulder and left leg at Lone Pine. This gritty digger survived the Great War. Richard's father, Walter, had 3 tours of duty in World War II to Papua, New Guinea and Borneo between 1942 and 1945. Richard's brother, Robert, also served in Vietnam. Wearing the khaki is in the Norden blood, and the Nordens bled for their country. Richard, as so many, including Keith Payne VC and Sir Peter Cosgrove AC, will attest, was made of the right stuff. It is Governor-General, ladies and gentlemen, the Gundagai way. Robin is from Gundagai. She's a Gundagai girl. She would appreciate just what I'm saying. Gundagai people are special. They love their country, as we all do. They're bred tough, but they're very friendly, as those from rural areas tend to be. Richard Norden was characteristically Gundagai. Today, in the Gundagai District Services Club, also on Sheridan Street, they'll mark this investiture with a beer and a smile and immense pride. It's the Gundagai way. For Richard Norden is one of them, and his legacy represents all of us and what we aspire to be. For we all want to be our best when our best is demanded of us. When the call is made and it's our turn to step up, we all want to be what Richard Norden was during the Battle of Coral Balmoral in 1968, when he was only 19 years young. Just think about that. A mere boy. But oh, what a valiant one. Duty first. Courage, excellence, integrity, respect, service, the values of the Australian Army. The spirit Richard Norden exemplified in his deeds on that historic day, and that historic moment in Vietnam. Remember too, the gallant actions for which we assembled to mark posthumously today were not without loss of life, and we pay our respects in that regard. I wish to pay special tribute to Richard's widow. Robin raised their infant sons, Scott and Shane, after the tragic death of their beloved Richard, whilst he was serving as an Australian Capital Territory police officer in 1972. For what you have done for our nation, Robin, thank you. The same goes to Scott and Shane. Thank you. As I look at you, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Deep gratitude also to Lieutenant Colonel retired George Hulse, whose relentless advocacy helped make today happen. George, thank you. Robin and boys, the loss of your husband and dad must have been so painful, so immense. I hope this small yet deeply symbolic cross, said to have been made with gunmetal from captured cannon from the 19th century, somehow, in some way helps comfort you in the grief, the loss and the sorrow you have endured for decades. Richard Norden, who has joined a pantheon of VC heroes, is justifiably the pride of Australia today. Colonel Jerry Kearns, Commandant of the Home of the Soldier Blamey Barracks, 1st Recruit Training Battalion at Wagga Wagga, where Richard learned how to be a soldier, will be delighted. Back in Gundagai, 5 miles from the famous dog on the tucker box, the popular local mayor, Ab McAllister, an affable, knockabout, quintessentially Australian bloke to his bootstraps, will be beaming with joy right about now. The local newspaper journalist Helen Castles will be preparing the special front page coverage of this event for the Gundagai's Independence Next edition on Thursday. I made sure of that yesterday. And I know ex-serviceman Paul Verco from the Gundagai RSL, who has joined us in Rockhampton today, and thank you, Paul, carries the mood of the town and the Riverina region in his heart. We are also very pleased and honoured on Gundagai and the Riverina's behalf, Governor-General, that you have made this award today. Thank you. Let us now get to work on updating those Gundagai cenotaph letters from DCM to VC, funding and erecting a Main Street statue in his honour, and always remembering Richard Norden for what he was and for what he will always be, an ordinary, everyday Gundagai lad who did extraordinary things to save and to protect others, lest we forget.
Thank you, Mr. McCormack. I'd now like to invite Admiral David Johnston, Chief of the Defence Force, to address us.
Good morning. I too acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and recognise their elders past, present and emerging. Your Excellencies, Acting Prime Minister, distinguished guests, all but particularly the family and friends of Richard. When Richard chose to run forward into heavy enemy fire, he did not do so with a desire for glory or heroism. He did so because he saw two of his mates isolated and wounded. Richard showed a complete disregard for his own safety when he moved towards his section leader, Corporal Ian Dawson. Even when he ran out of ammunition, he pushed forward using an enemy weapon and dragging the wounded Corporal Dawson to safety. Despite receiving wounds during his rescue of Corporal Dawson, Richard would advance twice more under intensive fire to ensure the recovery of the body of Private Christopher Nesbitt, the forward scout. While Richard is not here with us today, we remember his courage, his dedication, his selflessness, his choice to risk his own life to save an injured man and ensure a fallen soldier could be returned home to his loved ones. Those of us in the ADF today did not know Richard, but what we do recognise is his values and the way he acted on them. Service to our nation and its people ahead of oneself. Courage in the face of adversity. Respect for each other. Integrity to do what is right and to strive for excellence in what he did. These values are the foundation of the Australian Defence Force, underpinning our ability to achieve our mission today. Richard's story now forms a part of the grand tapestry of the Victoria Cross for Australia. He joins a prestigious few who in the face of enemies showed extreme daring, devotion to duty, self-sacrifice and valour, a legacy of selflessness and mateship. The gallantry of Richard, Private Norden VC, will continue to be an inspiration to all current and future members of the Australian Defence Force to be the best that each of us can. He, along with the countless men and women who have served and sacrificed for their nation, remind us there are no great people. There are only great challenges, which ordinary people are forced by circumstances to meet. We thank him for his service, and we will not forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral. I'd now like to invite Mr. Brian Tate to come to speak to us.
Good morning. Your Excellencies, Robin, Shane, Scott, Lance, and members of the Norden Freeman family, friends and family of Dick, distinguished guests, including Keith Payne VC, ACT police colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Leslie Norden, better known to all of his ACT police colleagues as Dick, was sworn in as a constable on the 9th of February 1970 and was allocated the badge number of 433. following his probationary period and service in general duties. Dick successfully completed a police motorcyclist course and soon after was transferred to the traffic division. Dick passed away on the 30th of October 1972 following a tragic accident 4 days earlier whilst he was on duty riding his police motorcycle on Hindmarsh Drive. On the 1st of November 1972, he was buried at Woburn Cemetery with full military and police honours. Present today are many members of Dick's former police force colleagues, including there is quite a number of his recruit training course here, and also some former members of his police motorcycle training course, as well as those that served with him in the traffic branch. Yesterday, an informal garden party was held at Scott and Norden's place. Those attending were members of Dick's family, former ACT police colleagues and executive members of the AFP, including the Chief Police Officer, ACT. A highlight of the occasion was the presentation of police service medals to Robin, Scott and Shane. Those who served alongside Dick remember him as a very quiet young man, and many of us never knew about what had happened in Vietnam with Dick until the introduction of the internet. And it was then that we found out exactly what a gallant action he'd carried out. And it was so different to the Dick that we knew. It was very easygoing, very quiet, and a fairly unassuming member. But to all of us, he was just another copper mate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. I'd now like to invite Mr. Scott Richard Norden Freeman to speak.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's tough going last. Today, we gather to honour the memory and legacy of my father, Richard Leslie Norden, who has been posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross. This is the highest recognition for gallantry our nation can bestow, reserved for those who have shown exceptional courage under fire. For our family, this moment is not only a historic honour, it is a deeply personal act of remembrance. The actions for which my father is recognised today occurred during the Battle of Coral and Balmoral in 1968. Those who served with him know this recognition is long overdue, and I'd like to acknowledge Lieutenant Colonel George Hulse, OAM. His tireless advocacy led to the upgrade of Dad's Distinguished Conduct Medal to the Victoria Cross. Without his persistence, attention to detail, and unwavering belief in doing justice by those who served, we would not be here today. On behalf of our family, thank you. To the veterans of Coral and Balmoral, many of them are here, thank you for continuing to share his story and carry his memory. Your presence is a reminder that courage is rarely solitary, it is built in bonds of service and brotherhood. To the Australian Defence Force and Australian Federal Police, thank you for honouring both parts of Richard's career. He wore both uniforms with pride and died in service to the Australian people. To the people of Australia, this award reflects not just one act, but a life of duty, sacrifice and honour. My father is no longer here to receive it, but his legacy lives on. Richard was a husband to Robin and a young father when he died. I was just 6 months old. My brother Shane wasn't yet 2. Our father lost his life in a tragic accident on duty while serving with the Australian Federal Police. Our mother was widowed overnight, left with 2 infant sons and a legacy she carried with strength and grace. Thank you, Mum. Thank you also to my other hero father, Lance. You raised Shane and I as your own. And together with Mum, gave us the home, strength and love we needed. You've never once asked for recognition, but today I want to say clearly, we are who we are because of you. We also honour our young brother, Benjamin, born into this story and part of it always. Richard's legacy lives on in the Norden bloodline. Richard and Robin's grandchildren are all here today. Harrison, Leslie Freeman, Jack Norden Freeman, Paxton Cadwell Freeman, Hannah Kalai Freeman, and Dawson Leslie Norden Freeman. To our father and our children's grandfather Richard, you are remembered, you are honoured, you are loved. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Now, to give a moment to reflect on the service of Richard Norden and the service of all veterans and our police and our current service personnel and their families, the last post will be played, followed by a minute of silence and then rouse. And then there will be the march off of the colours. Can I ask that you now please stand for the last post and the march off? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the formalities today. There'll now be a number of official photographs to be taken up the front, but can I please invite you to move to the back of the room and enjoy morning tea. Thank you.